Hello there, and welcome to The Value of Everything. So, how do we change the world? This is not going to be the smallest task by any means, but we will explore certain problems that we encounter in our day-to-day lives, laws of our environments and the limitations, the certain metrics that we can apply in our worlds and apply certain ecosystems to combat the limitations of ourselves and our economies, to really just be some kind of counterbalance to swing the pendulum in the opposite direction and to really create a world which is better for all of us. Now, a little bit of a mouthful of a beginning here, but I will just outline a few little problems that we have. So let's just sniper at maybe the three most important ones. So we have trade union movements, workers' unions who are basically trying to obtain power over the business owners, but really what they end up doing is just destroying the means of production, therefore bringing down humanity with it. The next one would be the corporation, which basically is a legal shield from any kind of ownership or responsibility for immoral doings, and therefore the money and the greed really takes over, and then they rush to the government to pass certain laws to give themselves monopolies or really do things like immoral wars and things like that. So there is problems with the corporation. And then there is issues with religion and dogma and ideology, but there are obviously some components of religion highlighting morality and virtue, which is fairly good, which you can't necessarily discount. But however, there are power structures involved with them, and therefore there are problems in each one of those categories. So, really, to change the world, we need to first to investigate the laws of our environment and know the limitations of man or woman, depending on the way you want to look at it. But what are the laws of our environment? Well, I would say one of the most important laws of our environment are there is seasonal changes, there is scarcity, there is certain abundances, and there is a method of which a man can, or a woman can really put things into a marketplace to redistribute wealth in a way that they know what their sovereign bodies want and pass it along to other people. Now, we know that the limitations of man is that we can really be susceptible to greed, we can be susceptible to lust, we can really put ourselves too much forward without thinking about others, and really the real true selfish person who is really into their own self-interest really needs to be selfless, thus to give them the best prospects in life. So they are the main key factors here. I'd like to just say from my perspective is that during good times, I am really like a pessimist. And when we were going through all the little credit stages of the, if you could say the boom times of putting it all on your credit card, I was a little bit pessimistic of things. Now things are getting a little bit darker, the storm clouds are gathering. I really want to just push out a lot more optimism and real good ideas that is going to, as we put in the title, change the world. So, what I'm going to put forward is a method of creating different ecosystems. Now, the ecosystems are voluntary, so therefore, if you put forward an ecosystem which is really just like a new way of demonstrating force, so like I want to create these little super cities where everyone is forced to pay their taxes, and I'm going to have this computer that recalculates a system to devise abundance for everyone. It's still really using the power of force to ensure that these things are done. Every time that I'm mentioning a few of these ecosystems to be created, it's really on a voluntary level, and if it gets created and it works, then fantastic, people are using it, and then if it gets created and it fails, then really it's just no harm done. Obviously, maybe there's a little bit of a work effort involved in creating a little ecosystem, but essentially there could be lessons learned from it more, and that could be very valuable for the future as well. Now, when I say an ecosystem, I mean some kind of distributing measure whereby people find a means to exchange value. So where I really am focusing on here is more so the blockchain technology. So with blockchain technology, you do have a distributed ledger. You do have miners who are discovering a new coin, which is in a scarce limit, and they are redistributing the wealth. Now, I'm just going to tackle a few of these little areas. Now, this is one of the major things when it comes to Bitcoin is that there needs to be certain metrics in which people can really cotton onto it. So now with the Bitcoin example, people really liked the idea of it because it did have a finite supply. People or miners had to crunch over a number of numbers to crack a safe or a number safe until they were awarded Bitcoins. Once these Bitcoins were awarded to them, they were encrypted, so nobody else could steal it from them. And seeing that people saw that there was value in having an encrypted store of wealth that people could exchange with each other, then the value started to increase and people would buy Bitcoins for pizzas, then use proper currencies like US dollars or fiat currencies, if you want to call it that. And then from there onwards, by the reason of having a new method to direct and transfer money without any middlemen and without having anybody inflating the money supply, without any central powers inflating and pulling the strings in the background, therefore there is a new ecosystem that has been created. Now, this is really, I believe, everyone's mentioned the Internet of Things, where you just can have a gadget where you can switch on your security at home, which is fantastic. But I believe that the real thing that's going to change the world is this blockchain technology. This is really creating new ecosystems in which discoveries of value have never really been contemplated before. Now, one thing I'll mention now, that people like gold because it looks pretty and they can wear it as necklaces. Now, we could find ourselves in a scenario where if we have a minted coin of, say, friendship rather than a minted coin of gold, there could be foreseen value in friendship, and therefore there could be some kind of currency in a form of a friendship. So I'm saying that humans have a value system of a lot of things, and I would say a lot of people would virtue things like friendship and loyalty and healing the world in comparison for material goods, which pretty much is the monetary system in which we're living in right now. So I'm going to continue on from that one. That one's a little bit of a theoretical point I'm trying to make there. It's a little obscure and a little bit sort of, it's hard to maintain a grasp when you think, okay, yeah, well, gold is in your hands, but friendship isn't really a method of which you can tangibly quantify. Now, I suggest in a lot of these things that we may be able to tangibly quantify things by the method of improving miners with certain metrics and components. Now, this is where I'm going to move into the metric of life and how humans work. So, to really create a new ecosystem, we need a certain set of rules, and the same sort of rules really apply with the Bitcoin and the blockchain technology. We need a method in which it cannot be tampered by humans, so an encrypted ledger in which nobody can really false account, and really a very complicated way in which people can mine themselves coins as well, but really doesn't have the ability for humans to play around with the value system, so that obviously there's power, corruption, and all different things can arise from that. So we need a system which really is purely decentralized and doesn't have this collusion aspect. It needs to be measurable by a certain metric. So really we need to have, so with the blockchain, we have a measurable password, which gets longer and longer and longer, which is harder for the miners to discover over time. So everything is measurable, and there is an accounting ledger which redistributes all of the coin in that measure. And whenever you transfer and exchange value, there is a measurement in the accounting ledger. So that's just one of the aspects there. We can gauge individuals' improvement. This is really going into an exchange system, which I will explain a little bit later. This is more on the humanitarian side of things. It does actually help human beings. So obviously with the Bitcoin network, it does help human beings because we do not have centralized authorities which are distorting the wealth transfer and people's sovereignty of what their needs and wants are, and inflating the money supply so people just continuously buy things and throw them away because they know that the money is going to be used tomorrow, and people are distorting currencies, things like that. So really you do want to have humans to really know the value of what coins are in their pockets. This is the very important thing. It's like to fight evil, you need to be evil, but it is important. We need to create a scarcity limit of the coin itself. So if we just had this continuously inflating money supply, which we have with our fiat money, really we just start to lose the value of the coin itself, and it doesn't really have any worth in the world. So therefore with the Bitcoin there will only be 21 million minted. So this does really apply to other coins as well. People need to see, and this is the very important thing, intrinsic value in the coin as to invest in. Now, I remember when I mentioned that people see that gold is valuable, therefore people can wear it as jewelry, it makes people look richer, and so therefore governments realized that gold was very valuable and it was a very good way to exchange wealth. Therefore they would keep all the gold, and then they would release out loads of paper notes which would represent that gold, but after a time they decoupled it from the gold system, and therefore the money is just really not worth anything other than the power of the state to enforce that it is. So really we have a very good example of what we have now. We just literally have a government telling us that this money is worth something, and there is means in which the government can tax its population in the future is really the only kind of driver into which how much it's worth. So if you can see that gold is a precious item and it's of value, and if we can recode things like friendship and things that are benefit or our environment to things that humans value, then we potentially can store this coinage or mintage system into a blockchain distributed ledger system in which people can invest in and say, okay, right, well, I would like my money into this kind of coin, and there's a limited supply, and miners are working to discover things. Now, hopefully I'm sort of getting to a point, but I'm going to give you a list of examples that I was just thinking over. Maybe some of them have already been invented, but I really haven't done too much in the way of research. I'm applying thought experiments to these ideas. So the environment is a very good one. I'm going to start with Aircoin. So basically we have a scenario where all around the world we have miners which are set up, and these miners you may need to have two separate types of miners. Ones which just purely measure the air quality supply. The better that they can do that, the more of the distribution of air coins they get. And then the second would be the miners who are improving the air quality supply. Now they really can't be working together because they can play around with that, so that there needs to be some counteracting measure for that as well. But if you have these two miners working in unison with each other and they are improving the air quality, and then people are investing their money into Aircoin as to say, okay, right, this is a good investment. People are saying, okay, well, from these miners are actually improving the air quality, and here is this monetary value in return. Now, it's a little bit tricky because you're thinking, okay, well, I don't really understand why people would buy an Aircoin in the first place. But if you can think that people like good air quality, so if you start to invest in the Aircoin, it's just a scarce limit of Aircoins that exist. And you know that if you think that there is going to be speculation in the future that people would like more of a better air quality, and you see that more people are trying to improve the air quality, then the Aircoin will start to gradually increase in value against other tangible goods. And if you think of a barter system, the Aircoin would become more and more in value. So therefore, you would have a scenario in which people are improving the air quality just by a redistributed ledger as there is scarce limit and there is miners counteracting with each other to gain the most amount of air coins. Now, if you think it gets started to become legitimized as more and more miners start to come into the fray, people start to measure the air quality, you get statistical analysis around the world, probably from the air coin ledger, to see whether the air coin is working the best. I guess you would have to have metrics as to this is the current status of the air quality, and as time progresses, the air quality is improving in this area. It's filtering out smog, things like that. So you have that application which can be applied. I'm going to go through a number of subjects here, so be prepared. C-coin, so you really uses the same method as to Aircoin. People really want to improve marine life and the quality of the seawaters, so you really probably would have a little bit more of a struggle, but if you are the only miner in the center of the Pacific Ocean, you'll probably get quite a lot of distribution to yourself. So it is an interesting perspective, and if maybe you would have a number of boat miners that are actually physically manifesting themselves into the sea, which are really pulling out all the pollutants and keeping it into a vat or something, which they're going to dig in deep into the ground later on. But it really sort of starts to churn out. You'd have to have measurements and means in which you can see that these boats or these station filters are really improving the seawater or improving the mammal life. Another one, really this is a bit of a silly one, but it's quite tangible because you could work this one out by satellite instead, which would be light pollution coin. So in the city you can see from the satellites that there is a certain number of light pollution which is being occurred. If you're a miner in the local area and you are really trying to reduce the light pollution which is created during the night, then you would work as you're a miner in the local area and you're trying to put light filters so that light only points downwards, and therefore if you are the local miner in the area, then therefore you're getting the most amount of coins. Eventually you'll get to a state whereby the universe will be very much viewable from people that live in the cities, and it will be quite an amazing thing to have. Just a note, probably if you're going to have loads of miners in the local area competing with each other and stuff like that, competition is quite a good thing, but sometimes you might need a little mechanism as well where you collaborate and that actually improves things. However, collaboration sometimes creates monopolies, so just need to have a good measure in which that works. Sorry, a bit of coffee there. Next up, arbitrage. Basically, this is like a financial instrument which will go around working out if people are just acting as a middleman, working out and scheming a way in which to say that there is a marketplace out there whereby you can buy a joystick for $12, but somebody that's in the local shop is only selling it to you for $30. This is a discovery mechanism in which the miner comes to you and say, hold on a minute here, you can earn this for a lot more cheaper. You can direct the source and economize, I can't even say the word, to improve the living standards and really get the product or the producer as direct as possible to you. So the miners are really coming around thinking, okay, right, this person is buying these goods, this person is buying these a little bit higher than what the market expects, and the mining system is really trying to work out, right, these are all the products that you're buying or looking to buy, this is the cheapest price you can buy at, and really gets rewarded for finding the most discoveries of purchased items. So you probably need some kind of purchased mapped ledger, and it's this arbitrage. Miners are always trying to discover what's the most economical way in which you can purchase something for the lowest price. So that really does improve economies in a lot of ways. Next one would be health coin. So you could have something very simple like a BMI measurement of the local population, but BMI isn't really maybe the best way of measuring health. But you could have, dependent on the miners, the best quality miners can discover the best ways to improve health and measure it in a certain area. So maybe the miners are actually mining and trying to discover health of the local people themselves. And if they can really work out methods like maybe be providing free runs, and if the population of people that they are really helping to improve is going up, and they are finding that they're living longer and living healthier and they've got less fat on them, and then the mining system redistributes wealth to those people that are creating the most health. Truth coin, so whereby I think in the world we live today, there's a lot of information that gets flown out there. It's really hard to decipher what is true, what is not that good. And in the old days, reporters were really trying to get verified sources. Nowadays, it's really about getting the first piece of news out as soon as possible. But miners would be awarded as soon as possible to confirm a substantiated report as early as possible. And the miners that can verify substantiated reports the earliest will be rewarded the quickest on the distributed ledger. And then you would have a mechanism in which news was verified early as possible without having a load of bullshit going into the system and people trying to work out whether it's true or not. Next up would be charity coin. Now, charity is obviously a very interesting component. A lot of the aspects in which we are thinking of is really people trying to be altruistic and think, okay, well, I value gold, but I also value people to not suffer. I value things like what I mentioned before, friendship. So you do have to work out mechanisms of exchange of value in terms of charity itself. So in the old days, there were things like friendly societies where people would collaborate and try and put money into a sort of a safe haven sort of money system. And a lot of that was based upon trust. There was good families there, but sometimes unfortunate things happen. There's people that have bad health and that occurs to them, so they lose their number one breadwinner. And yeah, the friendly society would work in and kick in and help everybody out. So you would need some kind of method in which this charity coin would seek rated improvements. Now, how you would improve living standards, maybe to improve people's living quarters, accommodation. Health is obviously one thing which I just carried over a little bit earlier. Their ability to have means to like working skills, ability to be employed, just all of these little factors in which charity coins could work. And if you had a mechanism or a metric in which miners could seek rated improvements in the population of people that it has, then the miners would work as quickly as possible to improve them and therefore be redistributed very good hard workers. And then you just take one step back, then there's this charity coin that goes around in the system. People will say, okay, well, these miners and these charity coin people are really helping out society. They seem to be really focused and augmented into doing that job. Rather than me just giving a person on the street some money, I think these guys have got a good structure, a good basis, how to reduce poverty. I might as well just invest some money into this charity coin, and then they can start to really mine over and churn over to produce the best work. Obviously, there is a finite limited supply of charity coins, but these miners obviously get awarded charity coins, and then people can really purchase these charity coins from these miners itself. So it's interesting how that works as well. Now, I just mentioned before, you don't necessarily need to have just one Bitcoin, and you don't necessarily need to have just one charity coin. You can augment and calibrate different charity coins to do different things. And it's just a sense of price discovery in the human values market as to which value coin works better for humanity in comparison to others, and does enable miners to extract value for themselves enough to keep them going, and to have some kind of system which gets more people interested as well to work out and mine for better human quality living standards. Okay, next up would be crime or vigilante coin. So imagine in a dangerous society in which police state has fallen, this crime or vigilante coin would be incredibly important. We hear stories in Detroit where the police force is just really outnumbered. They've got no real means to control violent crimes, and people are just really in their own gangs, and their own communities are just doing it for themselves. So this is just a method in which a community can really govern themselves in terms of a vigilante coin. So probably the preventative measures is always better than having some kind of ruling force. So there would be, you would probably require some kind of metric in which crime incidences are reported lower. You probably would need some kind of collaborative effort between the miners. So as the miners work together more and more, then they get rewarded more and more as well. So that would be interesting as to how they would be distributed. But obviously you don't really want monopolies. But because of the scale of policing, you don't really need to have this humongous police state to control crime. You really just need local involvement in which to reduce crime and ensure that people are making the necessary, doing the day-to-day necessary things to ensure that crime doesn't happen. I guess crime really does start with the family and to have good parenting. So maybe there would be a focus that these crime or vigilante coin people would be having a focusing on good parenting and things like that in the local community to prevent crime and to really have a good structure in which people can work with each other if there are any problem children, and there could be an extra focus on them, and maybe there could be more help, people trying to support them and provide them work. So there could be a much more of a better focused method in which we could improve crime in local areas. Remember, there is a little bit of a problem here because you don't want, obviously, other miners creating crime and destroying other miners' work. So you do need that sort of method of where you have the distribution ledger and where you transfer from one to another. You get a load of nodes which confirm that that transaction has gone through correctly. You would probably need a pass just to verify that this crime has gone and it's been checked with a number of individuals before it's truly verified, before the mine is happening. Also, you probably need some kind of urgent response miner as well, in which if there is a crime that's happening in the local area, the miners can join together and solve the problem as quickly and as orderly as possible without harming any humans. Okay, next one. Back onto the financial side of things, anti-monopoly coins. So obviously where there's collusion and problems in which there's all power and no ownership in corporations, this would be a mining structure as to which to push forward and seek out companies which were more sole ownership and really to reinstate cooperative ownership so that people have got a shared responsibility, a shared ownership. You wouldn't have these CEOs with these incredibly massive amounts of earnings. You might even have all the owners being working on the ground level and the CEO is just appointed by all these ground level workers just on a normal basic wage. So it's not really as poweredly corrupted as what you get nowadays. And obviously the anti-monopoly coin would get better if you could have a one-on-one sort of relationship between owners and the amount of people in the staff payrolls. So if you get that, then there's less power and there's less corruption which is occurring inside business units. And yeah, there is more of a freedom in our markets. So this goes again with anti-collusion coins as well. So this obviously can be applied on many other applications whereby people are colluding to seek out scarcity on resources. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going with that, but there is a little bit of an idea on that one. Outdoor sport coins. So I guess if we could have a coin which distributes more wealth to people that can go outside and play sports, particularly this is probably more favouring for kids as well. This does improve the health, and maybe this could be a subsidiary of the health coin. It's a little bit of a tricky one to base a metric upon, but I definitely think if people are doing meetups and then people are verifying the people that went on that day to the outdoor sporting occasion, then you could have this interesting thing that can happen, and maybe this outdoor sport coin can sort of collaborate and create these new free-forming sporting events which occur, and yeah, it's an interesting thing in which miners could work with on that one. happiness coin. So literally the miners are there to improve the happiness. I would say more long-sustained happiness in the population rather than short-term happiness, which is like instant gratification. So there would need to be, this is where it comes down to the metrics, how happy that person is, maybe some kind of survey, maybe some kind of brain scan, some chemical balance scan, just to work out how, see, this is where you need to find a way in which to stop human manipulation or just say, yeah, I'm really happy now, to award the miners loads of coins. But if you could have a method in which you could scan the local population to find out how happy they are without it being manipulated, then people or the miners are really focusing upon happiness. Happiness is really our main goal in life. So therefore the happiness coin is probably really going to be the highest invested one out of everything else. And therefore I would imagine that that would have a big capacity to shoot up in value as soon as we could work out a really non-manipulative metric in which humans could be rated based upon their happiness. However, you could launch hundreds of different metrics in which you can rate that and release tons of different coins. City beautification coin. I remember this from like playing SimCity and stuff like that. You can invest in improving the way a city looks by putting loads of flower pots and stuff like that outside. It would be really nice. And I guess you could have some kind of algorithm in which it works. If you think of the Google Maps where there was little cars going around recording the streets, you could have cars driving around the streets looking at all the different roads and seeing how many different beautiful colors are going on, or how sort of grey it is, using an algorithm to see what the most appealing streets are, and then the local miners who are working to improve the beautification of the local area will be awarded the most coins. So you would have some beautiful, fantastic, unique little towns and streets that would be continuously improving, and there would be vested interest in the miners to improve those. Next up, automate coins. So there are loads of things in companies and businesses in around the world in which things are very manual and monotonous, and it really could be automated by a programmer. There isn't many programmers in the world to do this, but if you had miners who are actually really working hard to create automated processes, so you almost have some kind of miners working all in collaboration to create artificial intelligence to seek out automated processes. There will be a limited supply of this coin, all those kind of things, but really that tremendously releases humankind from doing shitty, monotonous tasks to really being themselves, using and their creative skills and human skills rather than pressing a button every couple of minutes to confirm something that's happened. Logistics coin. This is an interesting economical coin as well. The miners would work out the efficiency of moving businesses closer and rewarding the businesses who do this with larger coins. So if you think of business hubs, and if you could bring everybody together, if you could bring farming together, if you could bring cities together, if there was a means of production that you could say, okay, well, if this farm was closer to these people, these are the biggest purchasers of that. If we could move them over there, then we could create the most efficient market. Now, obviously, we live in a world of government regulations, but if there was a logistic coin that was really seeking out a valuable way in which to move businesses closer together to produce more efficiency, then that would be an incredible token to society. Next one would be survival coin. It's like the prepper's coin sort of thing. But yeah, this is an interesting one. There's a couple of things that probably you could base this survival coin on. But firstly, you could be awarded to exploration and terraforming of new planets. Obviously, that is quite a way into the future. There could be a method of awarding miners to minimize unjust deaths, to reward them. So if there was poor water supply or massively humanitarian problems which are occurring, war, genocide, if the survival coin miners came to the action and found a way to prevent the problem before it happens, if there was a means of which you could measure a metric of it and award the Bitcoin from that, then there would be an amazing benefit to humanity from doing that. Next one would be say if there was a meteorite coming to Earth to destroy it, miners would have this massive payout if they could discover a way, or the first one to launch the missile to blow it up to change the direction of the meteorite to save Earth and us and all the other animals on this planet. So you can really augment a economy to really turn itself into a survival mode if there is a problem that is coming around the corner pretty soon. Discovery coin. So this is just a fairly interesting thing. I remember in the age of discovery of new lands, you could possibly have this method. The coin would award for mapping new areas. So you could have a method of which you could have detailed land maps, but also you could have space chart. So really you are pushing out the realms of which humans can discover outside worlds. We don't really know too much about the land and the soil qualities of the planets, and even in our solar system. So it'd be interesting if you did have a discovery coin mechanism in which people could invest in. So this is another interesting one. Probably not really. Each one of these probably could get enough broadcasts on their own. Virtue Eugenics coin. So most philosophers, believe it or not, are eugenicists, but they're more so voluntary eugenicists than anything else, where we're trying to lead people into a path of goodness rather than a path of self-destruction. And I guess miners would be awarded to promote virtues in people. So, I mean, just a very simple method I could think of is to release adverts out to say, be good to your children, be kind to them, things like that, and we create a better society for ourselves. People see the benefit of having that, so people invest in the virtue coin. So debate coin. So this will be an interesting one. This is sort of a metric in which, say, if a scientific or evidence-based research comes out and it's not quite confirmed or cannot be really sort of sustained just yet, or it's really fighting against the main, not really dogma, but sort of the main status quo of society. So like, say, when Charles Darwin came out with that survival of the fittest and there is evolution out there, that became a massive debate and he was discredited. So if you had a metric in which miners were rating the credibility of what we're saying, the emotional, compelling arguments to the human aspects of our mind, and the logical aspect as well. Probably emotions probably has the least amount of rating there, I'd imagine, but the logic and the credibility, and then justly awards the best rated argument, then debates could be automated in a certain method and measure. It sounds a bit horrible to me sometimes to remove humans from the debate itself, but there is a means in which to discover problems a lot earlier, especially if you get these complicated mathematicians where nobody really knows what they're talking about. But if you had AI technology really trying to crunch over whether they are making a valid argument or not, that could be a massive benefit to society and stop us wasting our time and move on to new discoveries. You could have, this is a bit more on the scary side as well, Transcendence coin as well, where miners are awarded if we can find methods in which we can change the methods of our space-time. We can go through matter, really just transcend through this physical realm of our senses. Now that's probably very, very far-fetched for most people to have even contemplate. It's quite strange for me, and this was really just a thought experiment in itself, but I think it sounds pretty cool, this kind of thing called the Transcendence coin, where humans can pass beyond the nature of our own reality, and that would be a very futuristic kind of coin to have. There's another one as well which I found quite interesting called Virus Coin, in which you could have a blockchain in which it was a simulation of the human body. You could have miners which produce the simulation of the human body the best, and then you could have miners in which they kill off the virus itself, and you could have some kind of simulation method working, and then we could have discoveries in medicine based upon this virus coin. Maybe virus coin is probably not the best way to call it, but maybe medical experiment coin or something like that. But that would be fairly good. So just to top it all off, just remember we've got this. We've got a coin in mint at the moment, and it's really. I'll let you know about it at the moment. So it's called the Selfish coin. So If you don't know this already, people are awarded by any means to extract coins from anyone on a continuous supply of coins which continuously lose value. Therefore, we have to hustle, steal, and really do what we can to exchange value. Now, obviously, we've got governments to protect our property rights, but really they are at the top to inflate money supply and deficit spend. We actually do have, strangely enough, the selfish coin. So once I've mentioned to you all of these other beneficial coins or voluntary ecosystems in which humans can live in, and then when you just end up going back and thinking about what we've got right now, which is pretty much the selfish coin, it does make you ponder about things and give you a moment's thought to pause upon. So, yeah, with that, I would like to leave you. Really, I'm not going to be like the only person who ever comes up with these ideas. I think probably people can come up with much brighter ideas than I can. And so please put in any comments, thoughts, and suggestions. If you can think to expand on any of the coins that I've just mentioned, or even collaborate in saying, okay, well, somebody's already thought about this. It's interesting how you've seen it there. I think it's really good just to push people's ideas in which these little miniature voluntary ecosystems could work and essentially change the world for the better. So thank you very much for your time.